Welcome to the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. Here's your host, Brien Hanley.
I'm not Brien Hanley. I'm not. He's in Las Vegas, probably not in any shape to appear on any kind of video. He's probably blurry in still photos right now because his Louisville Cardinals absolutely got smoked in the first round. Looks like they didn't even show up. Sorry, Big B. It is Fitz. It is Ryan Gilbert and Cole Carmody. That's right, Big 12 fans. You are stuck with the Go Pirate Cat staff today because we got nothing else to do. It's not like we're covering the NCAA tournament. And here we are. We're here to just kind of talk about what's going on. And let's start here, boys. And by the way, if you're joining us, make sure you're subscribing to the Big 12 Insiders channel. Please do so. And drop some comments in. Give us some talking points here if you'd like us to hear us talk about something. Guys, I did not see much of the Houston game. I saw briefly in the first half and then decided I don't like that level of violence in my life. I don't. They're good. Southern Illinois, Edwardsville, not good. That's my analysis of the game. One of you give me your thoughts on the Houston Cougars, my pick to win it all.
Go ahead, Cole.
Well, let's just say this. I put some money on Houston to win the national championship. I want to say it was at like plus 600 before the tournament. They had like the sixth best odds. And I'm like, yeah, that's probably worth it. And, from a gambling aspect, I'll have to look, but I would be hard pressed to imagine that they didn't move up in odds as far as to win the national championship. Obviously, holding a team to 40 points is really impressive. Give credit to SIU Edwardsville. First trip to the NCAA tournament, and they were humbled very quickly. So Houston, obviously very dominant. I'm sure we're going to get into the ACC and SEC stuff, but really good for the Big 12 that its champion just absolutely rolled. And looks like that they are going to have a pretty fun matchup in the round of 32.
Yeah, it's going to be a dang good game against Gonzaga based off of
the
way that the Bulldogs played here on Thursday. But yeah, I mean, like that Houston game kind of epitomizes what we've seen up to this point in terms of there haven't really been many close games. I know Clemson made a run late with McNeese, but by and large, it's just been kind of blowouts and boring games. Hopefully this night slate can give us something better to talk about and watch.
Yep. It was pretty boring until McNeese pulled off that upset. Just not a good day for the ACC at all, but let's talk about the other Big 12 team before we move on. BYU just wrapped up beating VCU 80-71. I'm wearing my BYU blue. It's just the shirt I picked out, but I'm going to claim that. And guys, BYU is really good because VCU, I thought, played pretty damn well and could not keep up with the Cougars.
It's not shocking because of the kind of team that BYU has been. But if you follow this team from the beginning part of the year until now, their growth has been tremendous. I mean, they were a bubble team in the middle part of conference play, and it kind of felt like that game against Kansas really set the tone for them. That was the game where they had arrived, per se. And yeah, VCU was going blow for blow with them, but BYU just said, no, you're not good enough. And they clamped down their defense when they really needed to start the second half. What was it, about a 6-point game at halftime? Maybe it was a 9-point game. I know BYU jumped out to a 17-point lead, and VCU had to play catch up from there. But I mean, can we just talk about the post presence for BYU? I mean, a 6'6" center. Like K-State fans watching this might remember Thomas Gibson. Well, that's what it kind of feels like when you watch that young man play in the middle, because he is so talented and his passing ability is what really sticks out to me. And there was a few plays in that game where he had a nice dish down for a few easy buckets. And I'm really impressed with BYU. I picked him to go to the Sweet 16. I'm going to stick with that pick. I really like this team. They keep talking about on the broadcast about how they play like an NBA style because that's where their coach came from. Mm-hmm. And that is the kind of basketball that wins in March. When you can make outside shots and when you can work inside to out, you're going to have a chance.
Guys, what's encouraging about BYU is it's a team that hadn't lost since, early February. They have the hiccup against Houston in the in the tournament in Kansas City. And here on Thursday, this was kind of the chance, maybe the opportunity to prove that you're not missing a beat. And that's just, a 1-game hiccup. You move on from it. You keep your foot on the gas. And from start to finish, the way that the Cougars played, against VCU kind of proved that. So, teams can get hot late in March at the right time, but sometimes you lose in your conference tournament, and that can just kill all the momentum you have. I think BYU's clearly proven that that's not the case. You just lost to maybe a really dang good Houston team, like we said. So, a couple of real good showings for the league so far.
Boy, BYU is so well put together. It took them a while, as you mentioned, Cole, to get where they are right now, but they know what they want to do, and they have carved out all the roles for these guys. We're talking about a team with a 6'9" point guard and a 6'6" center. Makes sense of that. But you have a coach too that comes from the NBA background, and he's just looking at things in maybe a different way. But he's got that team buttoned down right now, and man, I'm looking forward to watching them play throughout the tournament. I like the Big 12's brackets quite a bit. I think Iowa State's got an ability to go deep in this tournament based on their poll, and I think Texas Tech, I'm optimistic about them too. But the next game up, and let me bring this up real quick, the next game up for the tournament for the Big 12 is Kansas and Arkansas, 6:10 Central. By the way, Central Time is the official time zone of the Big 12 Insiders. 6:10 on CBS. Kansas, a 7 seed, and Arkansas, a 10 seed. The day will wind up with Texas Tech, a 3 against UNC Wilmington, a 14. That's at 9:10 on True TV. A little more Big 12 after dark for everyone. Guys, I think Kansas, Arkansas is one of the biggest games in this tournament for the Big 12, because the narrative is the SEC is so good. We've already seen one loss, and Georgia's on the way to a second. I haven't looked at. I don't know, but they've got so many 1 and 2 and 3 seeds. They're gonna have a lot of teams advance, but I don't know that what we're seeing right now is holding up the judgment that they were the best conference. It's early, but Kansas beating Arkansas is almost a must for the Big 12, because you can't have a 10 seed in Arkansas beating a 7 seed in Kansas and then try to make the argument about your league being better. So I hope KU carries that Big 12 banner. I don't have a good feeling about it. KU has been so hit and miss. They can be so good. And then sometimes they lose their identity, Ryan Gilbert, and kind of forget what they're trying to do and just get outplayed by people. That's what happened in a number of Big 12 games, is this KU team underachieved in conference. But now I think I'm going to trust Bill Self to guide his team through this first round.
Yeah, this is a real confusing Kansas team. And I know this is something you hear a lot, that, this team could make a Final Four run, or you can easily see them getting bounced in the first game. But I mean, that couldn't be more true for this Jayhawk team. They've got great quality wins. Should have beat Houston on its home court, had a chance to win down at the Fertitta Center as well on the road against the Cougars, and obviously great wins, but also just some uncharacteristic Bill Self losses. But you've got, not just that game, but the next game, you would imagine, against Rick Pitino, that little quadrant, or whatever you want to call it, right? That's got some dang good coaches. And so it's time for Bill Self to prove that, and that would be a great look for the Big 12. I agree, Fitz. I would push back just a little bit, though. The SEC, between Florida, Bama, Tennessee, Auburn, you're going to have a couple of teams inevitably make a run. All right. I know we all probably want to see them all get upset first round. There's just so many 1-2 seeds with a pathway. It's just there. They're going to make those runs deep. I think Houston is well equipped to do that, guys. And I guess you could maybe loop KU into this. I'm not necessarily expecting it from KU, but it's going to be imperative upon your BYUs of the world, right? Texas Tech. Can Iowa State navigate the injury without Keyshawn Gilbert? That's really, first round, second round games, great. But, do you have teams up at the top of your league to go toe-to-toe with those top-tier SEC teams as well? And, the depth of a league is one thing, but at the end of the day, winning championships, getting to the Final Four is what people and, analytics numbers, that's what that's going to remember. And I think Houston can kind of carry the banner. for this league in that regard. But who else is going to step up? Big 12 can't just have one elite team like maybe the perception has kind of been, right?
Yeah,
I just don't know about this Kansas team, guys. Like, I know we've said that the whole year. What are you going to get out of this KU team? But this is a game they should win. Like, you look at everything, if everything's equal, who has the experience? Well, it's Kansas. They've got a 27th year point guard and 27th year power forward in KJ Adams and DeJuan Harris. Who has the star power? Well, it's Kansas. They've got Hunter Dickinson. Who has the shooting? Well, they have Zeke Mayo, and AJ Storr played really well in Kansas City, right? So, like, you look at it on paper, and this Kansas team should be so much better than Arkansas. Now, John L. Davis, obviously running the point. K-State fans might remember that name from Florida Atlantic. A really, really good point guard for John Calipari. But, guys, my thing with this is this game might come down to coaching. I mean, two teams who have underachieved the entire season. Who is going to be able to make adjustments in the middle part of the game and really take control of this game? Because this just screams like a game that's going to be sloppy until one team takes control of it. Like, we all have seen those sporting events where it looks like neither team wants to win. It kind of looks like a rock fight. It wouldn't surprise me if this game starts out as a rock fight before one team pulls away, because all things equal, KU is the better team. But as we know in the NCAA tournament, all things most definitely aren't equal.
Arkansas was 16th in the preseason polls. And you guys all remember KU was number 1. So to your point, Cole, yeah, absolutely. On paper, KU should be able to get this done.
I'd like to point out that, Cole, if you're right and this comes down to coaching, I'm taking Bill Self.
Mm-hmm.
I know KU fans don't think this is his best coaching job, and I would agree. The roster isn't as strong, but I also haven't seen him kind of working his Bill Self magic quite as much. But it's there. And I think against John Calipari, this is going to come out. This is going to be so fun to watch those two guys go at it and work the refs and do all their veteran coach things. The poor officials. Both of these guys have a knack for working officials and kind of getting their way. Someone's not going to get their way today, and someone's going to be mad. They might throw toys.
We didn't have Doug Sermons. I hope Doug Sermons is doing this game. They should have put some veteran officials with these two coaches and in that quadrant, because if you have some younger officials doing these games, you're right. Like, seriously, that could be a factor, because those officials, they can say they don't get intimidated by coaches, but when you've got those two guys on the sideline, it would be kind of hard not to be intimidated by them.
Oh, Doug Sermons. The officiating's been so bad this season. I like it when he's on the court. And if you've followed me for a long time, I am not a fan of Doug Sermons and his look at me style that takes him to the review monitor 17 times a game so he can check his hair. I don't know. I don't have hair, so I don't really care about that. Ryan Gilbert, where do you think Tech's at right now? They should advance out of the first round, obviously, but at one point late in the season, they looked like a team that was Final Four worthy. They were playing at an incredibly high level, and maybe some of that's faded a little bit.
Yeah, I'm more concerned for second round, whoever that is, right? Mizzou, Drake, I think both teams. That's one that I went back and forth on, kind of picking my brackets and stuff. I think we're guys, we have that bias placed in us because of, we covered a Drake game and we saw the good. They beat a power conference team in Kansas State. I know the Wildcats, certainly struggled in that one, but we saw the good. Bennett Sturts and K-State fans are clamoring for him to come to Manhattan and all that, but we saw how good that team can be. And anybody that's knows anything about Ben McCollum knows that he's a top-notch, top-tier coach in basketball, in college basketball. Doesn't matter what level he's been at, he has won, and that's not to take anything away from Missouri. Caleb Grill's going back home to Wichita. Mizzou had a tremendous turnaround this season. So I don't have a good read on that one, but to get to the Big 12, kind of aspect of this now, I do fear for Texas Tech, whoever does win that game, right? You're going to have momentum after winning a game, right? So I'm nervous for the Red Raiders just with whoever comes out on top in that game before them.
Yeah, and I think another thing to keep in mind here, guys, is that Texas Tech is kind of one of those teams. I don't necessarily know if they have a true identity. They're just a really good basketball team. Like, you watch Drake, their identity is they're going to slow it down. They're going to play in the half court. You look at Mizzou, they're going to get out and they're going to run. And Texas Tech is one of those teams that they are going to be able to play both of those games. And so, yeah, I guess to counter your point, Ryan, like I think they actually match up pretty well because they can play in the half court and they can also run. I honestly think that they probably match up a little bit better with Mizzou because I think they are more of a get out and run team than a half court set team. But either way, I mean, if they can avoid the upset, we know weird things happen every day in the NCAA tournament, and really nothing weird has happened yet. So they just have to avoid the weirdness and move on. I mean, the 3-14 line is not one where we typically see a lot of upsets, but it happens every 2 or 3 years. And so I would not be super comfortable in this game if I was Texas Tech because simply for the fact nothing weird has happened yet.
Yep. And Bracket Cat, our friend Bracket Cat, with a great observation here. What could be worse? Tony Padilla as the head official. I'm going to root for this now. Actually, I'm hoping this happens because he is so awful at his job. One of the two coaches will get a technical before the game starts because when he walks on the floor, they're going to go, well, for sake, and boom, just get teed up right there. I mean, he's so bad. He's just, if you stick around long enough, you become a veteran. Trust me. Doesn't mean you're good. You're just old. What else we got here? Guys, let me pop up the Friday here. Let me get over here and get to it. There's the Friday schedule. Again, we're Central Time Zone here. Baylor and Mississippi State, also another really significant game for this conference. Another middle of the bracket, Big 12 versus SEC game. That will get the day started. We'll be at a sports bar, right, Ryan Gilbert, tomorrow at 11:15 a.m. doing shots.
Are we going that early?
We're going to start.
Plan?
Well, I think we should start doing shots around 11, maybe like 5, just to warm up. Nothing too much. Let's not get carried away. And something light and cheerful like tequila. But that game's 11 a.m. on CBS. I'll be watching that at home. I'm not going to be at a sports bar that early. Iowa State and Lipscomb. I feel sorry for Lipscomb because his name used to be David, and now nobody cares. But Iowa State against David Lipscomb, 3-14 game. Iowa State should just absolutely roll. Akron and Arizona, the only evening game tomorrow on True TV at 6:35 p.m. Central. In Arizona, that is 4:35, unless it's 5:35, and maybe the state will vote to make it 3:35. I don't know what time it is in Arizona. I know I actually should have that T-shirt. That's on True TV. Not a real exciting slate of games. Baylor, Mississippi State's big. Iowa State and Arizona should absolutely roll in those games. I did it. I forgot to put that up. Guys, how big is this tournament for the Big 12?
I mean, yeah, I'll go. I'll say that you have to be able to win these toss-up games. So we talked about Kansas and Arkansas. You need to be able to win that. The next one you look at is Baylor and Mississippi State. As much as we want to talk about KU, Arkansas defining the league, that game right there, I think, really defines the league because Mississippi State was ranked for pretty much the whole year. Baylor was not. And Baylor has kind of been one of those middling teams who we've seen flashes from. We've also seen some not so good things from. Baylor wins that game. I think you're going to be feeling really good. Obviously, all the Big 12, I shouldn't say obviously. I think it's inevitable. Not every single Big 12 team wins their first round game. But I think if Baylor can beat Mississippi State, it will say a lot about the league, assuming that, Texas Tech can take care of business. That's why you look at the KU Arkansas game, you're like, if KU loses, I think the Big 12 would still be able to be okay because Baylor has a really good chance to beat Mississippi State.
Cool. I don't know if you saw my breakdown of Baylor, Mississippi State the other day on one of our Go Power Cat daily deliveries, but you just quoted it. You didn't know that, did you?
Nope.
I said, here's my evaluation of Mississippi State. Here's my evaluation of Baylor. Yeah. So I don't know who to pick. They've both been up, down. Baylor's been all over. Baylor looks so good sometimes and then totally lost. I think Scott Drew will have them ready. And I'm beginning to think maybe the SEC teams in the middle of the bracket weren't very good. Texas forgot that a game lasts 40 minutes, played about 35, 38 minutes, and then lost. No big deal. Just cost Rodney Terry his job. And, of course, then we just saw Gonzaga just dismantle Georgia in an 8-9 game. That's embarrassing for the SEC.
It's going to happen to Oklahoma too, by the way.
Oh, Oklahoma had no business being in the middle of the bracket like that.
They
should have been in Dayton.
First four. Yeah.
I don't get it. They should have been in Dayton along with Texas. I truly believe that. These two teams went 6-12 in conference play. How do you put them in the main bracket? If you're so convinced they belong in the field of 68, cool. But they were 6-12 in their own conference. Could you just put them in Dayton and let them earn it? But no, they put them in the main bracket. I hope they just get annihilated. Because in what little I've watched at Oklahoma, they look like the same kind of team basically that played in the Big 12.
Yep.
I don't think Porter Moser had some great breakthrough here. He's just in a conference now that ESPN's peddling like crack. And they just have got the SEC set up for failure. But as Gills pointed out, when you got a 1, 2, or 3 seed in your back pocket, you should make it to the Sweet 16. You really should, particularly if you're a 1 and 2. And that's going to be, there'll be a lot of beating chests about all the SEC teams in the Sweet 16. And we'll be like, well, you were pretty much given buys to that point, but that's cool. That's great.
Auburn didn't have a bye today, though. I mean,
no.
They won by 20? But like, if you watch that game, first half was not pretty. Against who even was the 16 seed?
Alabama State.
Yeah, powerhouse.
Ooh. That's like they're like the Crimson. I can't think of anything funny.
Crimson
I'm
Elephant.
sorry. I'm off my game.
Fitz, real quick though, before we move on, man. You asked Cole, you threw it to us. What does this mean? What does this tournament mean for the Big 12? I mean, guys, like, I think everybody is seeing it, right? Even before this tournament started, everybody saw that Oklahoma and Texas getting in was just bogus. I know Big B's done a tremendous job outlining it right here on this channel. So in terms of what does it mean for the Big 12, like, Fitz, I don't know if it means anything. Like, you can make a very rational decision on who you think, whether it's a team or a conference as a whole, who's good and who's not. And I think most people are waking up to it, especially we're halfway through the games on Thursday, especially after the first half of today. I mean, it's become pretty dang obvious that any normal person can see that. But where's the money at? Where's SEC's interest at? Or ESPN's interest is at in the SEC, right? It matters not that much. I mean, most people can understand it, but the people in charge, the powers that be, I know North Carolina's, that's not in the SEC, but, their AD not being in the room for those conversations, right? Like, just how much of that's really going to change, even if the Big 12 goes out and has 6 teams in the Sweet 16 and the SEC goes winless today and tomorrow. Like, how much is it really going to matter? I know it means a lot for the Big 12 for like people like us that are not, insanely biased, but for the ones where, with the money and the ones that are making those decisions, I don't know how much it truly matters, guys. I hate to say that, but that's my honest opinion.
I really think we need to evaluate how we're picking, whether it's the college football playoff or the NCAA tournament. Because here's the honest truth, folks. If you don't know how this works, they're ADs and other people, but they're just people. And if they're ADs, they're incredibly busy people that have a lot on their plate. They're not sitting around at 9 p.m. on a Tuesday night watching a college basketball game. They got to be at work early. I don't think they're good people to make these decisions. So what happens if they haven't watched a bunch of the teams play? They do what we all did. They get out the Cliff Notes, which in this case is spelled ESPN, and they just watch those highlights and they listen to what they say. And you know what ESPN has said? SEC really good. SEC unbeatable. Football, basketball, baseball. I mean, it's just an endless thing from them. And I know the SEC is the best overall conference in the country, but not by the margins ESPN wants to promote. And hopefully we'll see that unveil itself during this tournament. And I speak of experience because remember last year what the narrative was, guys, how good the Big 12 was, and the Big 12 kind of petered out. So I can see that happening here. But again, for the third time, when you're seeded 1, 2, or 3, you're probably getting the Sweet 16. And those were gifts based on the consistent, persistent, and always present talking points of ESPN that these teams are unbeatable. Nobody can match up with these. This is the best conference in the world. How did the SEC go from an okay conference to the best in the country in one season, and it just happens to be the season that ESPN takes over their contract? Well, imagine the chances of that. So I'll be plugged into that. But I think the Big 12, honestly, they have to go 7-0 in this first round. They need everyone to advance just to kind of match up the numbers a little bit better into the second or into the Sweet 16 because I think there's some really capable teams for the Big 12 in this bracket, capable matchups. I like what they're facing. I think BYU just went through a really significant challenge from VCU. That's a game that team last year stumbles. They lose. They lost last year in the first round. That looked like the same type of game, except BYU was a lot better. And I enjoy watching them. They're so well put together, Gills. They're just fun to watch. You know what they do? They do something that I haven't seen much of this season because I cover K-State. They run offense. They actually have an offense that scores points. I know what you're thinking. Is that against the rules? No, it turns out you can run an offense and score lots of points and be efficient. I had no idea.
John, this was much earlier, pulled up or not, but K-State was on a 6-game winning streak, went out to Provo, lost, and they gave it all to BYU, and they're the team that got hot. And like I said earlier, Houston, there you see, losing to Houston in Kansas City, but other than that, I mean, they've just been red hot. And
that's the only game they started that win streak with K-State, and that's their only loss.
Absolutely correct. Yeah, so it's
incredible.
Yeah, and last year they got bumped by Duquesne, correct?
Yes, it was
good for them. I know they got a new coach and a whole new everything kind of, but so Troy, like they got guys coming back from last year. It wasn't like a 1,000% overhaul. So good for them. Good for them. And Fitz, I tell you this all the time, guys. Like BYU is my favorite trip in the Big 12. People out there are great. Aside from West Virginia, go out to Pittsburgh. Shout out to Big B if you're watching this.
I did some incredibly exhaustive research here, guys. Yeah. We were inquiring about the referees for Kansas and Arkansas and if Doug Sermons would be there.
Doug, he was already on today, wasn't he?
He was. The referees for Kansas and Arkansas are Lamar Simpson, Keith Curry, and Chris Rast. All three names I don't think I've heard this year.
That's good. If you don't know them, man, that's a good thing. It's like a cornerback or a punter, like a kicker. Like you don't want to know their names.
Lamar Simpson, Keith Curry, and Chris Rast.
Nope.
You know what it's going to be? It's going to be Doug Sermons and Terry Padilla and Brooke Wells with fake mustaches on. Those are their side names. Those are what we check into the hotel under. I've never heard of those guys, which is good. I'm serious. Gills, you're right. We need a new generation of basketball officials, and we need a good one. The game is being damaged right now by officiating. It really is. I just think there's too many guys not teaching the right fundamentals. A lot of look at me officiating and being out of position. Doug Sermons is out of position a lot, but he's still willing to make a dramatic call from 3/4 court because that's how he rolls. And then he'll go to the monitor and watch him make the call. Okay, whose bell was that?
That might have been mine, but my phone was do not disturb, so I don't know how it went through. That's unbelievable.
Steelos Armadi's in the chat, guys, and we know who that is.
Uh-oh.
Who that is?
What is good looking black guy? Is he sober? Is he functioning? Is he? I feel bad for the Cardinals, Louisville.
I know. I felt bad for Big B just watching that one, but as long as Big B's got a couple buffets he can hit up in Vegas and how strongly he feels about some of those good eats out there in the desert, he's gonna be just fine.
I want to point out that wasn't a Big B's fat joke. He loves buffets in Vegas.
Mm-hmm.
Big B should be from the 70s because everyone loved the buffets in Vegas in the 70s. He would just destroy those. Now they're expensive. So what? No to both what? Oh, yeah, Louisville lost before he got off the plane or the plane. that's good, Big B. That's good.
He was planning on having a fun trip, and then they lost. Maybe I don't know. Maybe that's what he meant.
Still
to say.
gonna be fun. I guarantee you.
Yeah. Is Big B gonna go for cologne shopping? Sorry, I know we'll go back to Big 12 basketball here, but Big B better get some cologne to bring back for me and Cole.
That's right.
By the way, folks, that's a recall from Big 12 Media Days when the four of us were out there together for our site and for the Big 12 Insiders. His theories on cologne in Vegas was wonderful. Wonderful. Well, a slightly misleading name. What, Steelers Almighty? That's the name of his podcast, right?
Yep.
Correct?
Tune into it all the time.
Yeah, if you're a Steelers fan, you can catch Big B doing the Steelers Almighty podcast, and Ryan Gilbert's even been on it.
I have.
So, guys, I'm eager to see how KU comes out. Store being better in Kansas City is a really good sign for Kansas. Mm-hmm. They need him to play at a high level, but don't lose sight of hammering the ball into Hunter Dickinson. I mean, he's a beast. He's hard to stop.
Yeah.
And when you make the game about him, you're going to win most of those games. So,
and if KU was in Denver or Wichita or somewhere nearby, I actually think going on Providence is probably the best option given all of the off the court, social media stuff with Zeke Mayo, and just, I know KU fans generally are not happy, right? Just get away from the noise, get out of there. And, Arkansas obviously has to travel a long way as well. Now, same thing's obviously not going to be said for St. John's if you do win in the first game, but usually you want to play as close to home as possible. But for this KU team in 2024-25, I think it's great that you get away from the noise and go out and play far away. So
that's a great point.
If that, Cole mentioned the inconsistency, right? Like if you get Zeke Mayo to get out of his head and just go knock down shots and stores clicking, and that's how you can win games. I think the best chance to do that is when you're just out on a true neutral site. You don't necessarily have a ton of pressure on you playing at Allen Fieldhouse, and you also don't have a hostile crowd rooting against you on the road. If you just go out and play far away from home, escape everything, that kind of bodes well in my mind for Kansas.
Yep, I agree. Look for the big matchup with Big Z and Hunter Dickinson. Anytime Hunter Dickinson has to go up against another big guy, that's always been not the easiest thing in the world for him. Big Z, that's what they call him, the 7'2" Croatian from Arkansas, averaging 9, just over 4 rebounds, shooting 47% from the floor. So that's definitely going to be a matchup that I'm going to be looking for.
Sounds like a Bond villain.
He looks like a Bond villain. He does. Croatian. He looks like a Bond villain.
And guys, it's worth noting, like Bill Self, DeJuan Harris, KJ Adams, like they won a national championship at KU. I know John Calipari is a hell of a coach, but this is you're number one, Fayetteville. He's obviously got a ton of great things going for him as a coach, but KU obviously has the leg up there in that regard in terms of just more continuity playing in March Madness with each other compared to Arkansas, who I don't know the numbers, but had to get a good amount of players from the portal. And some players followed Calipari from Kentucky. Is that correct? So I understand that, there's probably some pieces that maybe might be there, but that's another area where KU has to take advantage of the March Madness experience and the losses that they've had, learn from your losses. Last year, they got knocked by, was it Gonzaga, correct? Learning from those and obviously taking what you can from that championship in 2022. Is that correct? Right. So, yeah.
Well, it's going to be interesting. I'm fascinated by this. Even last year, we saw when Oklahoma and Texas were in the conference, there wasn't this sense of one that the conference seems to have now. You would go, yeah, we need the Big 12 to do well. And then when teams had lost, you'd kind of go, yeah, I don't like you anyhow. This year, and I know some fans are always going to be that way with their rival. I'm just sensing, though, that Big 12 fans now have kind of woken up to this, that, we really need everyone to advance. We need teams to win games. We need teams in the Final Four. Granted, another Big 12 team winning a national title doesn't make the life easier for the other 15 schools in the conference, but it does raise the profile of the entire conference. So all the ships rise with that tide. So I think there's a real sense of that, and it's something the SEC's had for a long time, and I'm now picking it up from the Big 12, partially in response to the SEC and how obnoxious they are with it. But this is going to be a fun weekend. It really is, because if all 7 teams get through and then are playing Saturday and Sunday, there's going to be a lot of good viewing in Big 12 country. Guys, before we wrap up here, because we want to get the decks cleared before KU tips off with Arkansas at 6:15. Who did you boys pick in your main bracket? We all do different brackets, and then we pick one, and at the end you're like, how did McNeese end up winning? They're not even going to win a game. They did, and maybe they'll win 5 more, and you'll be brilliant. We all have that bracket.
I had McNeese in pretty much all my brackets. Fitz.
Yeah,
information.
That makes sense to me. My bracket I did on X, because they're having I'm like, I can't pick chalk, so I picked some teams to be a little fun, and I can't remember what bracket is, but I had Houston winning in my main bracket that we picked for our site. What do you guys have?
Yeah, I did too. I picked Houston. I think it's some of that Big 12 bias coming out, maybe a little bit, but I just look at what they bring to the table, and the one thing that they do that I don't think some of the other schools can do is defend. And man, you've got to be able to defend, and they shoot the 3 and they defend. And so I think Houston has a chance to go on a real run, and I really like their draw. So I picked Houston to win it all. My Cinderella team this year is I did pick Drake. I did pick Drake to make it to the Sweet 16. So that would be my Cinderella run, would be the Bulldogs.
I have them beating Missouri too.
Mm-hmm.
And don't tell some of your Missouri friends that, Fitz. In my money brackets, it was either Houston or Alabama. And obviously Houston, I think everybody listening to this kind of knows the reasoning behind that. But with Bama, Final Four last year, I know we just kind of crapped on the SEC for a long time on this show. But sorry?
They're legit. They really are.
Final Four last year, I think they've got a good coach. Nate Oates has obviously proven that. And then you got, a chunk of guys that return from that team as well. So I think that matters a lot just in my eyes. But Cole, you said Drake. I think I had Michigan going pretty dang far just because they won that Big Ten tournament. I think they can get hot, keep that going. But yeah, Houston and Bama are my 2 big ones.
Yeah, this is the scam that, whoever, it's typically ESPN decides who the best conference is. And it's worked in the Big 12's favor. It has. You have some of the best teams, in this case, Alabama and others in the SEC are clearly some of the best teams in the nation. So by association, then you decide the teams that are below them in the standings also must be great because they exist in the same realm, which is another word for conference, I guess, as the great teams. And that math doesn't add up. The great teams don't go 6-12 in their conference. Teams that are seated in the middle of the bracket at number 9 don't go 6-12 in their conference, even if their conference is really good. So I think there's just a lot of nonsense with some of those lower seeds. The top teams in the SEC are legit, but just because they know pretty girls doesn't mean they could date pretty girls.
I don't have either of those going in my life.
I know. Boys, anything else? Anything else? What do we got here over here? Anything? Anybody? Yeah, I don't know.
Tonight's games are better because I was so excited. I felt like Christmas morning today. I was kind of disappointed after the way the first half of the day went. I know Fitz was on the road. Did you even follow it much, Fitz? Is that a secret?
This is a hypothetical.
Hypothetical.
If we have any state troopers from the state of Kansas watching this, I had YouTube TV up on my phone, and it was up on my mount on my dash, turned sideways. But for some reason, my Bluetooth audio syncs up about 2 seconds later. So I can see the bucket and then hear the bucket. So, but no, the games I was trying to watch just weren't good. I mean, I put on Louisville, that stunk. And then I put on Purdue, and that stunk. And then I peeked in on Houston later, and that stunk. Every game I seemed to pick. And finally, on the way back from my road trip, I watched a chunk of that first half of BYU, and that game was locked up until maybe the final 5 minutes of the first half. And BYU's defense got some stops, and they got some 3-pointers down, and they got it open to about double digits at halftime. And that was just too much for VCU. I was really impressed with VCU, though. I really was. So, boys, I appreciate it very much. That's it for this live. Big B, be careful out there. I'm just going to let you know, because Big B, you're probably not the only person associated with the Big 12 out there. In case you don't know, we're friendly people in the Big 12. We trust people. I'll just say it. The stripper doesn't like you. It's all a lie. It's just a grift to make a buck. One buck at a time. That's it. We're done. We got to go.
Thank you for watching the Big 12 Insiders, your Big 12 sports show. This has been a Spirit Street production.